What's up guys, Jay here, and welcome back to the Mission Guide series. Man, it's been a while since I've done one of these. With Season 5 now being fully released, it came with it an incredibly huge amount of new content. And one of those pieces of content was a brand new mission type, the Deep Scan. This is probably one of my new favorite mission types to go through, and it is a lot of fun, but can be a little bit confusing, especially to new players. And it has some tricky sections to navigate. So if you guys are ready, we're going to go through the steps, completing a Deep Scan, the ways that you can make it a little bit easier, and what each class can do to make the mission a little bit better. By the way, if you enjoy this kind of video, let me know by liking and hitting that subscribe button to never miss another upload. So first, let's start with a general overview of the process of completing a Deep Scan mission. The Deep Scan mission combines aspects of missions like egg hunts and escort duties into a nice meld of hunting and defending. The goal in a Deep Scan is to eventually find and collect Morkite seeds, which apparently Morkite is now a plant, even though I thought it was just a mineral, but we'll save those hundreds of questions for later. In any event, before we can collect the Morkite seeds, we have to find the geo that they are located in and dig them out. You find where they are by uncovering and scanning resonance crystals. And once you scan enough of them, management sends in the new fancy Drillivator to take you all the way down to the Morkite geode, where you can then collect the seeds and then escape in probably the coolest way possible. In terms of cave layout, the mission takes place in a non-linear cave system, which honestly sometimes it can be a little confusing to navigate, which I'll explain more in the details section. And just keep in mind that the caves are a lot more winding and looping than normal, at least in my experience. So knowing where to go and how to get there will be a huge help. So in terms of details and intricacies for deep scans, and trust me, there are a lot of them, the bulk of the subtle details are in the earlier portion of the mission, since the latter half is pretty straightforward. First, like with every mission type, the mission length and cave complexity determines how many crystals you actually need to find, and in the case of Deep Scan, it will be either 3 or 5. Let's start with the first phase of the mission, where you have to try to find the resonance crystals. These crystals are located underground and have no visible indication on the surface as to where they are, unlike the alien egg. So in order to find them, you need to use the resonance proximity scanner that's located on the left side of your screen. Understanding how to read this will make finding the crystals much easier. First, it will simply beep faster, and the bar will become fuller with each beep the closer you get to a crystal. That part is easy enough to understand. However, another aspect of the proximity scanner is the symbol on the side of the bar. This symbol will either be a triangle pointing up, a triangle pointing down, or a diamond. If the symbol is the up triangle, then you know that the crystal you are currently tracking is above your current level. If it's a down pointing triangle, then it is below you. And if it's a diamond, then it is roughly at the same level that you are at right now. Knowing all of these things is a good way to help you not get lost, and also to keep those factors in mind when looking at your terrain scan. If you know the crystal is somewhat close to you and above you, and you can see a cave opening in that area, you can have a pretty good guess that the crystal is somewhere in that area. Now keep in mind that if you are very far away from the crystal, the scanner will change to a blue indicator and say distant, telling you that you are far away from any trackable crystal. It still follows the same logic, however, with the faster and fuller the beeping, the closer you are getting. Once you are close enough, the bar will then change back to the normal yellow bar, and then you can continue from there. Once you do finally find where the crystal is, you will know because the bar will be completely full and start beeping like crazy, and you will sometimes be able to hear a very faint sound of the crystal humming beneath you. Then you just need to start digging, which, if you are at the right spot, you will see white gravelly material directly under the surface, which is the stuff around the crystal. Now thankfully for this step, you only need to uncover the crystal a little bit, and it will automatically clear all of the needed dirt away, which is pretty nice. Then you can call in the scanner modules, which will land near the crystal to hook them up. This process is basically the same as hooking up the rock crackers to the meteors, but once you hook them up, you're done with the crystal and can move on to the next one. There's no defending needed. Once you do that 3 to 5 times, you are ready to do the next stage of the mission, in which Mission Control will sound down a new toy for us with the Drillivator, a drill and an elevator. What? This next section is, in my opinion, the most fun out of the whole mission and the most action-packed. Once you and your team are ready and stocked up, press all 4 buttons to send the Drillivator down towards the Morkite geode. During this section, 2 things are going to happen. First, enemies are going to be crawling down from the top of the tunnel straight out of the descent, and you're going to have to take them out, which is pretty self-explanatory. Second, the claw tracks that the Drillivator is using to go down will be damaged over time and will need to be regularly repaired. If you don't keep up with it, the Drillivator will jam and stop moving until it's fixed. Don't worry, it's not like Doretta, however. It can't be destroyed or blow up, it'll just stop moving. It will also sometimes stop on its own because it hits a dense layer of rock that it needs to take a second to cut through. After a few minutes of drilling, you will breach the Morkite geode and be able to collect those precious seeds. When inside the geode, the seeds you need to gather are very visible with a glowing green hue coming off of the shell. You gotta smack them open similar to the Evo nuts, and then they fall to the ground for you to collect. Then you just deposit them into Molly and call for extraction in probably the coolest way possible. Once you hit the button, on the side of the drill elevator will pop out special extraction jet boots, which once you put them on, you can fly up the very hole that you just created to come down. These special jet boots cool down very fast when they overheat, so you don't have to worry about falling. Then you just have to wait for Molly at the drop pod, which is probably the only real slow part of the mission that I don't really like, and then just head on home. So after that truck ton of information, it's time to talk about the classes and what they can provide in terms of use and effectiveness in this particular mission, as well as if any specific class has an incredibly useful position in regards to utility. First and foremost, I will say that a driller is a huge boon on these missions because, as I said earlier, finding the crystals can sometimes be tricky with the winding caves, and the driller can make navigating them and finding the objectives much easier. With that said, going into more detail as to what the driller can provide, he has a good amount of utility at pretty much each stage of the mission. As I just said, he can make finding the crystals really easy and should probably be the main person trying to find them since he can just cut a straight line to wherever the detector is telling him to go. On the drill elevator section, he has a lot of ways to assist in damage and enemy control. His flamethrower sticky fuel, the sludge pump's disperser compound, or even the cryo cannon's new crystal nucleation can help coat the tunnel walls, making it harder for enemies to pass. Not to mention his spring rippers, while a little awkward, can actually do some good work here. The gunner can help with traversal around the cave, provided that the layout fits well with the zip lines. Chances are, during the searching phase of the mission, he's going to be mainly taking out the random hordes of enemies attacking the team. He should stick with someone else as a buddy system to help out whoever he can. For the drill elevator stage, he has a lot more value since his weapons allow him for some very heavy area control. His lead storm with bullet hell can bounce bullets like no one's business, and the new mortar rounds for his thunderhead are insane for this section. The same can be said for the Hurricane's new cluster charges, but I have yet to get this one personally. However, a simple fragmentation missile can do the job just as well. The Scout can also fill the role of Crystal Hunter since he can be extremely mobile around the map. He may not be able to cut through the caves, but he can quickly zip around corners to triangulate the crystal's whereabouts. On the drilling section, he has some ways that he can assist the team and disrupt the enemies. Firstly, he can simply light up the tunnels really well with even just a single flare. For weapons, his GK2 can do some solid work with cleaning up enemies, especially if it has something like Bullets of Mercy and a driller running the kinds of stuff we mentioned before. His M1000 with something like electrocuting shots can slow down threats super effectively, and his Drac with impact deflection can bounce bullets around the tunnel, clearing enemies rather effectively. Plus, his stun sweeper and pheromone canisters can take a lot of pressure off as well. And for the engineer, he can assist the team in traversing to find the crystals with his platforms. As always, that's mainly what he'll have to offer, at least in the searching phase, aside from also protecting against swarms. During the drilling phase, he has a lot more utility and can do great work at culling the descending enemies. One great strategy is actually the new reworked stubby overclock, the microconductor. Simply line the tunnel walls with platforms and spray into them to turn them into an electric fence, essentially. Other than that, things like the Shard Diffractor's volatile impact can act like an alternative to the driller's sticky flames, and since it's close quarters, also a perfect opportunity for Fat Boy. So to sum up what the classes can offer in terms of completing this mission type, the Driller and Scout have a majority of the power during the searching portion of the mission unless you get a really good cave generation. They should prioritize finding the crystals before most other things. During the drilling phase, the Gunner and NG have their positions escalated as they have the bulk of the damage output as the enemies advance towards you. Now let's talk about where the deep scan sits when compared to the other mission types. It's been a while since I've done this, but basically each mission type gets 3 different ratings. One for difficulty, one for how fun it is, and one for its complexity, each with a value of 1 to 5, with 1 being very low and 5 being very high. Remember again that these ratings are only my personal take on this, so if you think it should be higher or lower, that is perfectly fine. First, in terms of difficulty, I'm going to give it a 2 because this mission type is not super hard in terms of actual pressure. The only real thing is finding the crystals, which probably has to do more with complexity. In terms of complexity, it's going to get a 4 because especially for newer players, it can be a bit overwhelming to try to find the crystals, especially if the spawns and cave generations are not in your favor. Finally, for the enjoyment rating, I'm actually going to give this one a 4, close to a 5, because this mission has a lot of different phases and sequences, which are all really fun and can utilize each class pretty well. The drill sequence itself is probably my new favorite sequence in any mission to date. So that essentially covers the basics of how to go through a deep scan mission, and hopefully now you guys have a better understanding of what to expect when going into them. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like the new mission type, or am I just overhyping it? Let me know. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video helpful. Be sure to give it a like because it tells me what types of videos you guys want to see. Rock and Stone Miners, I'll see you in the next video.